Welcome to Innovation Brief by IdeaScale, where we turn your work team into innovators.
All right, let's dive into something that's been on my mind lately. When you're leading innovation, you're always trying to predict the future, right? You're trying to anticipate where the market's going, what customers will want next year, even 5 years out. But how much of that is really solid insight and how much is just, well, gut feeling?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, intuition definitely plays a role in innovation, but you don't want to bet the farm on hunches alone. That's where quantitative market research comes in. It gives you that data-driven foundation to make smarter, more informed decisions.
That's exactly what we're going to dig into today. So for our listeners who are maybe new to this, how would you explain quantitative market research in simple terms?
Well, basically, it's all about using numbers to understand your market. It's about gathering and analyzing data to uncover those trends, those customer behaviors, those market forces that are really shaping your industry. And the beauty of it is it gives you concrete evidence to back up your innovation strategy.
So it's not just about flying by the seat of your pants. It's about backing up your intuition with some cold, hard facts.
Exactly. And that's crucial because as innovation leaders, we need to be able to justify our decisions, show that we're not just chasing shiny objects, but that we're making strategic bets based on real insights.
Now, you mentioned that quantitative research helps you understand your market. What are some specific examples of what you can learn from this type of research?
Oh, there's a whole treasure trove of insights you can uncover. For example, you can identify which products or services are resonating most with your customers and why. You can figure out what price points the market is willing to accept. You can even pinpoint the key factors that are driving purchasing decisions. And all of this information can be incredibly valuable when you're trying to develop new products or services that will actually hit the mark.
So it's not just about understanding the what, but also the why behind customer behavior. That's really powerful. Now, you've touched on a few key aspects of quantitative research, but for our listeners who are really wanting to get a handle on this, what are some of the defining characteristics that make it so valuable, so reliable as a tool?
You hit the nail on the head there. It's about reliability. It's about getting to insights you can trust. And there are a few things that really set quantitative market research apart. First off, it's all about structured data collection. Think standardized surveys, carefully designed experiments. This ensures everyone's responding to the same stimuli in the same way, so you know you're comparing apples to apples.
So consistency is key.
Absolutely. And then there's the matter of sample size. To get results you can really hang your hat on, you need a large enough sample to make sure you're capturing a true representation of your target audience. And this is where statistical analysis comes in. It's the engine that allows you to find those meaningful patterns and trends within the data, those insights that might not be visible to the naked eye.
So it's not just about collecting a bunch of numbers. It's about knowing how to analyze them, how to extract those nuggets of wisdom.
Exactly. And what's great about this approach is that it's objective. You're removing personal bias from the equation as much as possible. It's all about letting the data speak for itself. And that means that ideally, your findings should be replicable. Someone else could come along, follow the same methodology, and arrive at similar conclusions.
So there's a real sense of rigor, of scientific validity to it.
Precisely. And ultimately, the goal is to be able to generalize your findings, to say, okay, what we've learned from this sample applies to the broader market we're targeting. And of course, at the end of the day, it's all about quantification. You're taking those complex market dynamics and turning them into something measurable, something you can compare and analyze, something you can use to make concrete decisions.
So you're turning those fuzzy feelings and gut instincts into something solid, something actionable.
Right on. It's about taking the guesswork out of innovation.
Now, let's say our listeners are ready to roll up their sleeves and put quantitative research to work for them. What are the essential steps involved? What's the roadmap for actually conducting this type of research?
Well, there are generally 5 key stages to the process. And the first, and arguably the most critical, is defining your research question. This is where you need to get laser focused. What specific piece of information are you trying to unlock? What do you need to know about the market or your potential customers to really inform your innovation strategy? For example, instead of asking a broad question like, how can we be more innovative? You might ask, what are the biggest unmet needs our users have in managing their remote teams? That level of specificity is key.
So really honing in on the problem you're trying to solve.
Exactly. Once you have that clear objective, you can move on to step 2, which is designing your study. This is where you figure out who your target population is, who are the people you need to gather insights from. And you also need to select the most appropriate methods for collecting that data. Will it be surveys, experiments, or something else?
So choosing the right tools for the job.
Right. Then comes step 3, collecting your data. This is where you go out and actually gather the information using your chosen methods. The key here is to make sure you have a standardized process so that all participants are providing data in a consistent way. Once you have your data, it's time for step 4, analysis. This is where you roll up your sleeves and dive into the numbers, using statistical techniques to identify those meaningful patterns, those correlations that can shed light on potential market opportunities.
So this is where you really start to see the story the data is telling.
Absolutely. And finally, you reach step 5, which is drawing conclusions. This is where you interpret your analysis, figure out what the data is really telling you in relation to your initial research question. And these conclusions should directly inform your innovation roadmap.
So it's a full circle. You start with a question, you gather the data, you analyze it, and you end up with actionable insights that can guide your innovation strategy.
Precisely. It's about closing the loop, turning data into action.
Now let's talk about some specific methods. What are some quantitative research approaches that are particularly well suited for us as innovation leaders?
There are several that come to mind. Surveys, as we mentioned earlier, are a fantastic tool. They're incredibly flexible, so you can tailor them to ask very specific questions about new product ideas or features. And you can reach a large number of people relatively quickly to get that initial feedback.
So it's a great way to test the waters, get a pulse on what people are thinking.
Exactly. And if you want to go a step further and actually test out a new concept, experiments are a powerful tool. You can conduct lab experiments in a controlled setting to see how people respond to different features or designs. Or you can do field experiments in a real-world setting to observe how people actually use your product in their everyday lives.
So it's about moving from theory to practice, seeing how things actually play out in the real world.
Right. And then there are observational studies. These involve watching how people interact with existing products or services in their natural environment. This can be a goldmine of insights, revealing unmet needs or pain points that you might not have even been aware of. And let's not forget about secondary data analysis. This is where you leverage existing research reports, market data, even internal data to identify potential market gaps or emerging trends.
So tapping into the wealth of information that's already out there.
Precisely. It's about doing your homework, seeing what you can learn from existing research before you go out and invest in collecting your own primary data. And then, to understand how customer needs and preferences evolve over time, longitudinal studies are invaluable. These involve tracking the same individuals or groups over a period of time to see how their behaviors and attitudes change.
So it's like getting a time-lapse view of customer behavior.
Yeah, exactly. And then to compare different segments of your market at a single point in time, cross-sectional studies can be very helpful. This can be particularly useful for identifying niche markets where your innovation might find a strong foothold.
So really getting a 360-degree view of your market.
Precisely. It's about leaving no stone unturned. Now, to make this a bit more tangible, let's look at some specific examples of the types of questions you might ask in a quantitative market research study focused on innovation.
Yes. Let's get down to brass tacks.
For example, you could use a closed-ended question with a defined scale, like, how likely are you to use a new feature that allows you to? And then you describe the feature with answers ranging from very likely to not at all likely. This gives you a direct, quantifiable measure of potential interest in your innovation. Or you could use an open-ended question within a quantitative survey, such as, what is one thing you wish our current product could do that it doesn't? This type of question can spark unexpected ideas and uncover those hidden needs that you might not have even thought to ask about.
So closed-ended for direct measurement, open-ended for sparking new ideas.
Exactly. And then there are Likert scale questions, which allow you to gauge the level of agreement or disagreement with a statement. For example, you might ask, the proposed new service strongly aligns with my company's future needs, with a scale ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And rating scales, like asking people to rate a concept on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of its innovativeness, can be useful for getting a quick assessment of how your idea is perceived. And of course, don't forget about demographic questions to see how interest in your innovation might vary across different segments of your market.
So it's about using the right question type for the right kind of insight.
Absolutely. It's about being strategic with your questions. Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about some best practices for conducting effective quantitative market research for innovation. What are some key things to keep in mind to ensure you're getting the most out of your research?
Great question. I think we all want to make sure we're doing this right.
Absolutely. And the first thing I'll say, and it bears repeating, is that you need to define clear and specific research objectives. What are the exact questions you're trying to answer with your research? This clarity will guide your entire research process and ensure that you're collecting the right data to inform your innovation decisions.
So starting with the end in mind, knowing exactly what you're looking for.
Exactly. You also need to make sure that your measurement tools are both valid and reliable. Validity means that your tool is actually measuring what you intend it to measure. Reliability means that it produces consistent results over time. For example, if you're using a survey to gauge interest in a new product concept, you need to make sure that the questions are clear, unbiased, and actually capturing people's true opinions. And it's crucial to get a representative sample of your target audience. You want to make sure that the people you're surveying or interviewing actually reflect the characteristics of your larger market. Otherwise, your findings might not be generalizable to the broader population.
So it's not just about asking the right questions, it's about asking them to the right people.
Exactly. And speaking of questions, when you're designing your questionnaires or interview guides, make sure that the language is clear, concise, and easy to understand. You don't want to introduce any unnecessary jargon or technical terms, especially when you're talking about new or innovative concepts. And it's always a good idea to pilot test your questionnaire or interview guide with a small group of people before you roll it out to your larger sample. This will help you identify any confusing or ambiguous questions and ensure that you're getting the data you need.
So it's like a dress rehearsal for your research.
Exactly. Once you've collected your data, make sure you're applying robust statistical techniques to analyze it. You want to identify patterns and trends that are statistically significant, meaning that they're unlikely to have occurred by chance. And of course, data quality and accuracy are paramount. You need to make sure your data is clean, consistent, and free from errors. Otherwise, your findings could be misleading. And finally, when you're interpreting your findings, always consider the broader context. Don't just look at the numbers in isolation. Think about the why behind the data. What are the underlying factors that might be driving the trends you're seeing? How do your findings align with other research or market trends?
So it's not just about crunching numbers, it's about understanding what those numbers mean.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots, seeing the bigger picture.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. To wrap things up, what's the key takeaway